Namaskar, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. I have with me Mr. Kanwal Sibal, who's going to try and explain to us. And I'm sorry, sir, I'm going to take a little leeway and say what is wrong with this orange man.
Mm.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. What's
Mm.
happening, with Donald Trump in India is going to be very interesting to watch, and how will India respond is something that we will discuss today. Namaskar, sir. Welcome to
My
the show.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Sir, did you expect this?
No, not to this degree. Although there were signals coming from him that he was upping the ante in various ways, but not to this extent. He made it very personal. There is something which has annoyed him no end, and he is now lashing out at India in various ways, which is astonishing. I mean, there is no sense of balance, no sense of restraint, uh, and he is fixated on a few things and he keeps repeating them. He is not bothered about the impact that this would have on our relationship going ahead because these things are not easily forgotten. I mean, even if we were to reach some modus vivendi now, uh, it is clear that next time if something happens, again the relationship can go off the rails. Uh, After all, he's got another 3.5 years or more in power. Uh, Therefore, we have to then look very carefully as to how we are going to protect our interests going forward, not overexpose ourselves to the United States because that gives them points of pressure on us. I mean, the more trade we do with them, the more investments that we get from them, the more openings we get, the more openings their corporations get in India to invest in our economy. The more technology transfers, the more defense agreements gives them, if they want, levers to put pressure on us because actually it means increasing dependency. Now, so long as the relationship at the base, the fundamentals are very stable, there can be differences which you can then overcome through negotiations because the larger interests of the two countries are recognized by both sides. But if you have a person like him who wants to be happy and he determines, what will be the measure of his happiness, and that depends on the concessions he can obtain from others in some kind of a one-way deal, then you are in for trouble if you increase your dependency on a state like that. But it's not only that; it's the American system. So it's not only Trump. Now you have chaps like Lindsey Graham, you have chaps like Max Blumenthal, who are on their own trip. I can understand if governments put pressure for larger political or geopolitical or economic reasons on another government. But here are individual senators who think that they can determine the course of US foreign policy because of the separation of powers in the United States. So we have therefore to be very careful going ahead how many eggs we put in the US basket, uh, and protect ourselves against the vagaries of dealing with the United States of America. That does not mean that we distance ourselves from the United States. But what it does mean is that we calibrate it and at the same time make absolutely sure that we keep our other options open vis-a-vis the Russia, of course, Europe to some extent, especially as Europe and US are getting divided, and the global South as such, the BRICS countries, of course, and keep a door open to China as some kind of a counter pressure.
So my big question to you is about, they've got this sort of a, if you're seeing the kind of hubris that he's putting out as far as the the trade deal is concerned, as if the trade deal is pretty much everything. What are we seeing as for the negotiations? Because India was one of the first people to start the negotiations, and of course it would have been the toughest negotiations. They're not my words, his own words. So it's not going to be easy. But does he really think that he can challenge 1.4 billion people by embarrassing them?
Oh yes, oh yes. I mean, point is that he has instruments of coercion in his hands, and we don't have the same instruments of counter pressure in our hands. How do we coerce the United States? In fact, if we begin coercing the United States, there'll be a price to pay. And whatever other options we pursue during his uh, presidency uh, will actually generate more pressure by him on us. Look at the manner in which he is attacking BRICS. He's taken BRICS as a challenge. He said that they're going to impose 100% tariffs on BRICS countries if they go down the path of de-dollarization. Look at the manner in which he is treating Brazil. It's the most important country in Latin America, and it has an international profile. And on top of it, United States has a surplus with Brazil, and they've imposed 50% tariff. He has imposed 50% tariff on Brazil, and uh, and the reason for that is obviously not a trade imbalance or trade deficit the United States has. He's interfering directly in the internal politics of Brazil by saying that you are maltreating Bolsonaro. So uh, this is the point is that we uh, we have to be prepared for a period of tensions and difficulties in our relations with the United States. Um, but we have to brave it because if we, if you are dealing with a bully, then he'll keep making demands on you. Today it is this, tomorrow it can be something else. Day after you can say, okay, we had agreed that you'll buy so much LNG from us and you will have so many defense deals, but I want to see concrete results. You should up your purchases, things like that. So uh, we are we are into a difficult phase, and now he's openly using Pakistan against us. Suddenly, he's come out with this thing that an American company is going to explore the oil resources in Pakistan. Earlier, it was rare earths. Now it has become oil resources. I have never heard of Pakistan having oil resources which merit large scale investment in that country. Now, China has been there for a long, long time, and China is the biggest importer of energy, oil. Now, if they thought that Pakistan had a lot of resources, oil resources, uh, we would have heard something about China's intentions to exploit them. We never heard about that. And suddenly, out of the blue, he says that he's not going to decide which American company is going to take the lead. And he's contradicting himself. His entire plan so far is that other countries have to come and invest in the United States. He has bludgeoned the European Union to invest $600 billion in the next 3 years in United States. He's bludgeoned Japan into investing $500 billion. He bludgeoned the Saudis into investing. He wanted 1 trillion. I think they agreed to 500 billion or something. He also forced the UAE to commit itself to investment in the United States, and here he wants to invest in Pakistan, an unstable country living on IMF doles, and in Balochistan, which is already a disturbed area. So they're going to get involved in the domestic problems in Pakistan, and they're going to use what? Give more arms and everything else to the Pakistan army to deal with the Balochistan Liberation Front. So, I mean, his thinking is dangerous. Dangerous. The manner in which he's openly using the Pakistan card against us is most unfortunate.
The government of India doesn't seem to be phased by this. The recent statement which has come from the Minister of Trade has said, fair enough, whatever he wants to do, let him do. We will figure this out. We will protect our farmers. We will protect our MSMEs. We will protect our entities, and we will do what needs to be done. Now, that's very interesting at the first shot. And we also know that he tried a silly stunt of actually putting this out half an hour before the markets open in India. It the reaction was flat. So the markets are not reacting to it. The government is not really reacted to it. What did he really want from it? Did they want a rise? Did they want, oh shit, let's run to America and get it done? But the interesting thing is, post our reaction, sir, his comments completely toned down. He said, no, 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 we are negotiating with India. And by the way, he's already exempted certain things, electronics, mobile phones, pharma. He's already exempted those things.
Well, I didn't see that. A couple of comments on this. First of all, I think it was wise of our government not to issue an unnecessarily tough statement. Uh, by implication, uh, whatever you wanted to say has been said. That we wanted a fair and balanced and mutually advantageous agreement, and we still are looking for that. Number two, that we'll protect our national interests, especially those of our farmers and our MSMEs and then entrepreneurs. Uh, and so, in a sense, what we have said is that we will stand our ground as we have stood in our discussions with the UK on our FTA, which we have mentioned in our statement. I think this is enough in terms of a sober, sensible response rather than any shrill response, which would only put Trump's back up because he's a very egotistic, vainglorious fellow. Uh, now, with regard to uh, the latest statement that the latest exemptions that Trump has mentioned, I'm afraid I haven't come across that. I did look at the news this morning. I missed that. It's interesting that he said that, but I saw the other one where he's actually put his knife into us even more by saying that I don't care if India deals with the trades with Russia. They're both dead economies, so they can do what they want. I'm also not interested in any deal with Russia. Then he sort of warned former President Medvedev that he was entering dangerous territory when he was saying a few things. So I looked at that and I thought that was quite unnecessary, calling us a dead economy. I mean, the fifth largest, the fourth largest economy, going to be the third largest, and growing uh, amongst the largest economies, uh, the registering the highest growth, and he calls it a dead economy. And then he goes on to say in this tweet that we've not done much trade with India and this and that, which is complete nonsense. In the year 2000, for example, the total trade between India and United States was under $14 billion. Today, it is $130 billion, just the goods part. The services part is an additional one, and the total is roughly about 200 billion. So how can he say that there has been no trade between India and United States? He doesn't know his facts and figures. He just shoots off whatever comes to his mouth. I mean, the man needs to brief himself and be a little sober in his judgment and in his statements. Uh, And he's extremely egotistical. So if he has now stepped back a little bit, uh, that's that surprises me. In any case, for the time being, uh, he was not sanctioning the pharma, or he was not imposing tariffs on the pharma because that has very serious repercussions on healthcare, Medicare in the United States, because that's our biggest market for the generics. And if America has cheap drugs, uh, which thanks also to this part of the economic trade equation between India and United States. So he has to be careful if the prices of Medicare in United States go up because he's. But then he has separately said that he intends to have a separate tariff arrangement for pharma, having European Union in mind. But in the deal with the European Union, it appears that for the time being, this tariffs that the 15% tariffs that the European Union has agreed to covers also the pharma part. But you never know with Trump, which way he might go.
Sir,
And
you in your
for
sorry.
electronics, uh, this part I don't know how much our trade in electronics is important with the United States. I don't know the figures, but uh, we are not a major exporter of electronics. On the contrary, uh, our entire effort has been to develop a local electronics industry so as to reduce dependency on electronics from China and from ASEAN, etc., etc. We've been, I know, trying to persuade Japan that what you did in the field of the car industry, in building up a car industry, you should do in the field of electronics, because if you look ahead at the volume of imports of electronics into India, it'll go beyond what we import in terms of our oil imports, and therefore we need a Atmanirbharta in this sector, which we are hoping to achieve through our PLI schemes and all that. But I didn't know that electronics was a major part of our exports to the United States.
In your career, you would have seen, these kind of things, trade deals, and you probably have been part of these conversations as well. Tell me, how does this trade deal thing work, sir? Because I've seen the trade deal with Japan. He said they're going to do this, 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 this. Japanese have gone back and said, nah, we'll think about it. The Europeans, they signed a framework agreement. Yes, 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 everything okay in front of him. They went back, published completely the opposite of the readout of the Americans. They said, no, 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 we'll figure this out. This is not part of that. This is not part of that. They put out a lot of caveats. He so-called said we had a deal with China. Today he's put out a thing that, oh, there's a 90-day extension in terms of China. They did a deal with who else? With the UK. UK is fair enough. He signed the deal. The paper flew off in Canada. And 15, 20, 30 days later, when the UK signs a deal with us, he says it's the biggest trade deal in history after EU. So the UK US trade deal wasn't big enough, but India UK is bigger than that. What's this? Is this just a show that the world is kind of playing with him and saying, "Ha, theek hai yaar, tu kar le." Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, we are signing a deal, signing a deal. Sign the deal, come back and do what you want to. Is this what is happening today?
Well, there are two views on this. There is a view that let's give some headline satisfaction to
Hmm.
Trump. Let him boast about it and agree to something which looks good on paper and which he can exploit to say how much he has been able to bring in dollars, billions and billions of dollars into the United. But the point here is that uh, you mentioned the framework deal, or whatever you agree with the United States, which can then give him the opportunity to boast how he succeeded in advancing U.S. interests. It is put in writing, and so even the framework agreement, the broad principles in it, you have to agree to it in writing. And once you agree to it in writing, then you are committed to it. It can be a matter of negotiation later on the fine print, but the broad framework is there. Now, in the case of Europe, they've agreed 15% tariffs on their exports to the United States and zero tariff on U.S. exports to Europe, EU. And there's a huge backlash already that Germans have tried to protect their car industry, basically, uh, and uh, and also compromise on the interests of the farmers, which are of major interest to France. Whatever the thing, uh, the Van der Leyen, in her comments when she was sitting alongside Trump, in fact, made it quite clear in a press conference that this is the best we could do, they could do, and that this will give some stability to the relationship, and they've avoided higher tariffs, etc., etc. In other words, she conceded that they were under pressure, and they've agreed to a deal which is not totally satisfactory, but this was to avoid a worse deal. Insofar as Japan is concerned, I read some, I read some broad features of it. They have forced Japan also to buy some agriculture products, and as you know, Japan protects its agriculture like anything, and commitment of $500 billion. Although, mind you, the Japanese are now saying that this is not a commitment just to uh, eh, uh, put in $500 billion of investment. It will be loan guarantees.
Yep.
So they are trying to finesse it that way that it's not that money is going to flow from Japan to United States. It will be more in the form of loans. And so let's see. But the point is, can we agree to something in writing, which commits ourselves to something in writing, and then start niggling over details? We have our internal pressures. There will be internal commentaries. We are a very different political system. Uh, and if we are seen in a broad framework agreement in compromising the core sectors of our interests and our economy, then there's a political problem for the government. For Japan, for them, their security is so paramount. And mind you, they're an occupied country. It's all right. We don't say these things openly. They have American forces, they have American bases there. They're totally dependent on the United States for their security. And so far as Europe is concerned, the pro-Atlanticists are largely in power in Europe, including the new Chancellor of Germany. He was an employee, a big shot in BlackRock.
Yeah.
So they're all Atlanticists. And now that they have this problem with Russia over Ukraine, and have created uh, this this fear that if Russia wins in Ukraine, then they're going to invade West Europe itself. In other words, uh, they are so dependent on US for their security, and that issue and that problem has got become worse because of the inability to handle Russia and signs that Russia is going to win in Ukraine. Uh, So they, in that sense, are also dependent on United States for their security. We are not in the same boat uh, ourselves, but we have more room for room to play with, and we have some maneuverability. But coming back to what you said, I don't think that a country like ours can agree to a framework agreement in writing, which potentially might be against our core interests. Uh, Now, if in the framework agreement, dairy products are excluded, or uh, GMOs are excluded, and uh, and we have a balanced agreement in which we don't accept tariffs on our products without also uh, imposing tariffs on US exports to India, then I think there'll be problems selling that kind of a framework agreement politically in India.
Uh, yeah, that's absolutely true. But so when you look at a situation where America basically needs India to be on its side. Today we know it's not the India of 5 years ago. I mean, post COVID, there's been a big boost as far as India is concerned about ownership, nationalism, industry, whole lot of stuff which is kind of starting to come into place slowly, slowly. In the next about 10 years, 5 years, 10 years is going to be really, really interesting to watch how all that effort that has been put in is going to start flowering, and we can see that happening with 53% of GCCs already in India in the world, 53%, and by 2030, people are saying almost 78% will be in India. Uh, Data centers are moving here. A whole lot of stuff is happening. Is this him trying to tell India that listen, you need to come on my side?
Well, when it comes to the GCCs, uh, all the IPRs are owned by
All yeah,
the foreign corporations. So actually, they're using our human talent and our qualified workforce, because we can provide this qualified workforce in scale, which others can't. So, uh, is this in our longer term interest? Is there a spillover from these global capability centers into our own ability to develop technologies, to innovate this and that? I don't think that this is entirely clear at this point in time. Yes, it is giving employment to qualified workforce, but beyond that, I'm not too sure what are the benefits we are getting now. For example, they are saying that the biggest number of chip designers in the world are in India, right? Uh, but we've not been able to develop manufacturing manufacturing in the semiconductor space. Uh, so I think that on the GCCs, while it is a good thing in terms of um, making the big corporations in the West aware of the capacities we have to service them, but it remains a service to them and not so much a service to ourselves. Unless, as I said, unlike the Chinese, we sort of managed to get hold of all these technologies and created parallel companies in India who could then use these technologies to develop independent capacities. That's uh, now insofar as uh, the importance of India in the general scheme of things for the United States. Yes, I understand from my discussions with people in United States that the corporate sector in United States remains very much committed to the India relationship. They are looking very, they were looking very closely at the kind of tariffs that Trump imposes to see how that would play in terms of their business plans. But they remain very positive and they understand the importance to maintain those links with the Indian market. And they want to, many of them want to diversify their supply chains away from China and are looking at India. I also understand that in the Congress, the general sentiment remains very pro Indian, barring these fellows like Blumenthal and Lindsey Graham. The bipartisan consensus of good relations with India remains. I was also given, and it surprised me a little bit, I was given to understand that the State Department remains positive about India. But they have more or less.
Unlike normally, unlike the State Department, actually, State Department is normally against India. The Defense Department is pro India.
But they are actually saying that your problem is not with us, your problem is with the White House, and we can't help you there. So you please go and deal with the White House yourself. However, I also understand that the think tanks are against us, remain against us.
Follow them. So yes, Brookings and yeah, the CIA backed ones.
Yeah, so this is what the picture is. A mixed. It's a mixed picture. Uh, but uh, I think at a rational level, if you look at the geopolitics, if you look at geopolitics, and if as an outside observer you looked at the interests of the United States, you will reach the conclusion that the US also needs India. But Trump doesn't seem to share that kind of a vision, and he is now using the Pakistani card against us repeatedly, repeatedly, and he could do something more because if he is going to invest, as he says, in the oil sector there, um, which has the implication of handling the Balochistan Liberation Front, helping Pakistan deal with it. He could tomorrow announce some arms deal with Pakistan, uh, which will create even more complications for us.
Mm.
So now, in this latest tweet, uh, he said that uh, we're going to invest in this oil sector. We're going to decide which American firm will do it, and maybe one day Pakistan will sell oil to India. What is he talking about? What is he talking about? That means that, I mean, he doesn't know that Pakistan doesn't want to trade with India. And number two, why should we become hostage to Pakistani oil when there is oil all around us in the region? We have Iran to turn to if things open up, and of course we have the Gulf countries. Why do we need Pakistani oil? And as I joked, and actually just meant lightheartedly, but in a sense, it is not untrue. Maybe in his mind, he says that uh, I can wean India away from Russian oil, and I will offer them Pakistani oil. That kind of nonsense. Uh, because he said that in his thing that one day Pakistan can sell its oil to India.
Seems like he really knows his midterms are not going to go well, sir.
Well, as things are, how strong remains his MAGA base. Um, it's difficult to make an assessment, but his ratings are still in the high 40s. So it's
Mm.
not as if they have collapsed like in for some leaders in Europe, like Macron and others, where their popularity ratings have declined drastically. So his MAGA base seems to be reasonably intact, and maybe that's the reason why he continues to exaggerate his wins. And he's got some wins, no doubt, at least on paper, with Japan and the EU. They're one-sided deals. In fact, I had mentioned that in my posts and otherwise also to people I'm in touch with that the deal with Japan and the EU augured badly for India. I suspected that is going to make things tough for us because he succeeded with these two entities, and that would put his tail up, and he would feel that he can also browbeat India into
Mm.
a submission.
So, what's the opportunity for us here, sir?
You mind you, let's not underestimate the
America, no, no.
difficulties ahead. First
Yeah,
of
yeah.
all, if you notice our export organizations and our business class, they are trying to temporize. They're still trying to maintain an optimistic posture. That
Mm.
nothing has been sealed yet, and that we'll continue to have this dialogue. And we are hopeful, optimistic about a deal. And when the deal comes, then this whole problem of tariffs can be sorted out. It's a temporary issue. This is the kind of line that they're giving. And even the US India business fellows, the body there, is also promoting the same
Same
line.
line. Mm.
So there is concern. And certainly there is great concern in the IT sector, which has, you've seen the layoffs in the IT sector. Because if so long, for the time being, there are no tariffs on, on in this sector. But if he imposes tariffs there, then it can have very severe repercussions for us because America is our biggest market. And Trump is also uh, targeting the big tech companies in the United States. And it's the big tech companies actually that are, in fact, our partners in this sector. So there is a bit of an issue there so far going ahead. Yes, we've signed this FTA with Britain. We may sign one with Europe. Uh, our FTA with ASEAN has not worked. With Japan, it's not worked. Uh, there's no question of any FTA with China. With Russia, it's a lopsided relationship. Uh, we have $65 billion of trade, but our exports are only about 5 billion. The rest is Russian exports to us. Global South, it is there, but how much capacity does Global South have to actually provide us with the kind of market we need? So let's not underestimate the challenge that lies ahead. Uh, and as you see, if you look at the surpluses India has in trade, it's generally with the Western countries, with the United States, of course, but also small uh, positive balance with Europe. We signed the FTA with Australia, good thing, and of course uh, our FTA with UAE and our general trade basket with The Gulf countries, uh, the GCC, that's very, very significant. So there are these options for diversification. And finally, of course, there is this kind of confidence that is there at two levels. So one is that unlike many other countries, including China or Vietnam or others who are highly export dependent, our export dependency is relatively limited. So we have a huge, huge market, internal market.
Hmm.
And if we can find ways to increase consumption levels in India and make our industry invest more in in our in our growth story, then we can actually cushion ourselves sufficiently from what is happening with the United States. So we are not that unfavorably placed, despite all the difficulties that could could occur. Uh, so, and the second, of course, is that this would be a wake up call for us that we, in, as some people are saying, do the necessary reforms even more, so that our ambitions to diversify, to be part of international supply chains, etc., can materialize more effectively. In other words, put our house more in order, make ourselves more attractive, and that could itself actually be a strong argument uh, in our favor. And finally, I don't know if the figures are correct or not. I was seeing something to the effect of how much damage would be caused with 25% tariffs on our exports to the United States in various sectors. And the figures are not very impressive. That
Nothing actually. It's more of a propaganda than anything else, because out of the $130 billion, he's already excluded about $40 billion in tariff.
Yeah. So
So the impact is nothing actually.
uh, from the figures I see, it is nothing dramatic.
Yeah.
Now he's also talking about this penalty. Now, he's kept that thing in reserve, and I think the idea is to keep this sword of Damocles hanging on our head. That depending on how much satisfaction you give me, I will think uh, about the figure of penalties. And if you don't budge, and if you remain firm in your resistance, then I can up the figure. You remember in his tweet, he said that we are going to have a discussion with South Korea, and we've imposed so and so tariffs. But they can buy back, this is the word he uses, they can buy back these tariffs depending on what concessions they make to us. In other words, he's imposed 25% plus penalties, but India can buy back reprieve if he were to then sign on the dotted line as he wants. I mean, this is extremely crude, but this is what his mindset is.
So basically, what he's saying is, let me get this straight. He's saying, okay, I'm going to put a tariff, but you can adjust a tariff like this.
Meaning,
Oh, you can, figure this out. Let's work in this direction. That's what he was telling Brazil. As a matter of fact, that's very interesting. He's really hard on with Lula and about Lula and Bolsonaro and all that. But at the back end, they're talking pretty fine. It's everything seems to be okay, because the trade is going on as normal. He said 40% tariff. That is not come on as of now. First, let's say tomorrow it does come on. I mean, how will this? See, the point is, sir, the point that I'm trying to come out at is that he's giving a challenge to countries, and he's also his own people are coming out and saying, no, you can figure this out and finish it.
this I don't know, because he's doubling down on Brazil and Lula. Uh, so, and insofar as India is concerned, in fact, as 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 one can see from Greyson's or Jamie Greyson's
Yeah.
interview, he thought that India and the United States had reached a good understanding, a good deal, and they presented this to Trump. And he said, Grayson said publicly that Trump was not satisfied. He said it has to be everything or almost everything has to open up. So he was not satisfied with this interim deal, very carefully negotiated, and which satisfied both sides. But he rejected it.
So
Uh,
the
so
big red line in India is about the the, let me just say this, meat fed cows. Nobody's going to accept that.
I know. Now, another thing is that he wants to talk directly to Modi, uh, which is which is absolutely the wrong thing. Absolutely the wrong thing, because he'll make demands on our prime minister, and the prime minister can't won't tell on the telephone that all right, if this makes you happy, we'll agree to this. I mean, this is not how things are done. Apparently, he's very unhappy that he's not succeeded in bringing Modi onto the telephone so that he can strike personally a deal with him, which actually means that he wants India to compromise because he's not
Yeah.
willing to compromise. So he wants
And
India.
this is the second time Modi Saab was called when he was in Vancouver. Modi
Yeah.
said, "I'm not coming," and he walked off. I think this is the
So,
second
so this is an unfortunate situation where he has personalized things in this manner and rejected the work of the negotiator. It cannot be. He may be the man who negotiates, not the negotiator, who decides everything and puts it on Truth Social. So he has a way of doing things. Uh, but on our side, our system doesn't work that way.
time.
It's not as if our prime minister can decide from the on the top of his head what is the concession he can make, what compromise he can make, and then everybody has to fall in line. It's not like that. It has serious political implications. What we do, we don't do. It has a direct impact on our domestic politics. The other unfortunate thing is that all this Trump has been doing just before our parliament session and during our parliament session. Is now he's not a fool. Obviously, he has it in his head that I want to create problems for the government, for Modi, by saying all these things about Pakistan and about investing there in Pakistan and the oil trade and imposing 25% tariffs and penalty if you continue to purchase oil from Russia. He's giving ammunition to the opposition uh,
Mm.
to uh, to attack the government to say, and in some respects, not wrongly, from the opposition point of view, that where's your foreign policy? I mean, you were banking so heavily on good relations with Russia, and this was actually a big talking point in terms of your success in foreign policy that you could engage the United States and build a solid relationship progressively with them in various spheres while maintaining your ties with Russia. Now he's upset all that. So in that sense, yes, the opposition can raise these questions because they're interested in embarrassing the government. They're not interested in looking at why this has happened and whose fault it is. After all, India cannot control U.S. foreign policy, and U.S. has to control its own foreign policy and decide what its legitimate national interests are. And if they are not cognizant of this because they have this kind of a leader, what is government of India going to do about it?
That is there, sir. Lastly, now let me just a small question before we end. We've got a very interesting game which is going to take place, which is regards to BRICS, and he keeps mentioning BRICS, 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 BRICS. Seems like that is really pricking him, in spite of the fact that BRICS doesn't even have a headquarters. Uh, we know the reality of BRICS. There's hardly. I mean, if they actually got together, they could do a lot of damage, but they aren't. Because of a lot of other political reasons. He keeps saying BRICS, 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 BRICS. Is this whole frustration just because India's in BRICS? Sir?
No, no, no. Thing is that BRICS has been projected, especially by the Russians, as a, uh, a powerful force for multipolarity, and projecting it as such that BRICS is the bricks for building bricks for building up a multipolar world, and a multipolar world for America means a challenge to U.S. power. Uh, so that's what his concern is, and beyond that, The agenda of the BRICS, though everybody is not agreeable to the agenda, that we should trade with each other in our national currencies. Leave aside having a BRICS currency, which is simply not feasible, out of the question, but trading in your national currencies. Already, Russia and China are trading 98% in their this national currencies. India is also trying to promote the UPI and everything else, and wherever we can, to have arrangements where we can actually make rupee as part of our trade exchanges with select countries. With Russia, we are having rupee, ruble, trade in rupee and rubles. Now, this is in effect, de-dollarization. Now, if Russia is thrown out of SWIFT, if there are sanctions, you can't deal in dollars, euros, pounds, or yen with Russia, let's say. What do other countries do? Then they have to find alternative means. In effect, the United States, through its sanctions policies, is promoting de-dollarization. And with the expansion of BRICS, with more countries joining BRICS, including Indonesia recently, they see the writing on the wall that if this thing develops, then this will become a direct challenge to US supremacy and the supremacy of the dollar and the control of the US of the international financial system. Uh, so this is what he has in mind when he uh, directs his uh, anger against BRICS, notwithstanding what you said that BRICS is not a formal organization with the secretariat and this and that. But nevertheless, I think that momentum has slightly slowed down. But you've seen the number of countries who wanted to join BRICS and then become partner countries of BRICS. So why are they doing it? They are doing it because they see the excesses of American foreign policy and all this sanctions business, and they want to hedge against that. They want to have alternative options. You have the New Development Bank. You have the AIIB, which is not part of BRICS, but which China financed. Uh, and uh, the trade amongst the BRICS countries uh, is growing. You've seen when Prime Minister went to Brazil for the G20 thing, the kind of agreements that have been reached in principle, including defense ties. With and what our secretary mentioned was quite surprising as to what are the kind of things we have in mind in dealing with Brazil. So these things can they have a dynamic of its own and can be, can pick up, and that's what Mr. Trump has in mind.
It's amazing how I think this whole thing has taken a circle. Somewhere down the line, I had that opinion that we are going to come to a head with Uncle Trump, and I think we have. On that note, sir, thank you so much, sir.
But I think
Please,
one last point. I must say that Trump has been needling us needlessly.
yeah,
There's nothing we have done, nothing that we have done to draw this kind of bullying from Trump. What is there anything we've done? Nothing. Now, insofar as buying oil from Russia is concerned, right from 2022 we've been buying oil. And what did the American ambassador himself say with the outgoing ambassador? That we advise India to buy Russian oil so that there was enough oil in the market and the prices at the pump did not go up. And what did the Trump himself do? He reached out to Russia. He wanted to have a deal with Russia. In fact, they were talking about investments in Russia, etc., etc. Now, if he wants if he wants Putin to give him happiness the way he wants, that's not going to happen. And suddenly he changed his tune after mismanaging the entire dialogue with Russia, not only the United States but Europe. Now they are trying to pick on us. That stop buying oil from Russia, stop buying defense equipment from Russia. I mean, this thing was tried soon after the Ukraine invasion by the Europeans and the Americans. We stood firm. Oh, mind you, there is one thing, and we'll end there. We haven't spoken about CATSA
yeah,
because this legislation was passed during Trump's first term. And he hasn't spoken about it yet. But there is another Democracy sword hanging on, potentially on our head. Well, there it is.
But he was the one who gave us the exemption.
He hasn't.
No, during
No,
that time.
no exemption was
No,
given. It was
so
just
they
not.
just ignored it.
It was just not applied, but there was no exemption given.
Yeah, fantastic. Then let's it's the mood in the country is of confrontation, sir. Let me very, very clearly say this. And when I read online, when I read the commentary and all, people are wanting a confrontation. Let's see what happens. Because everybody remembers the times of 98, 99 when we were under sanctions. We really performed well. Technology grew, our economy grew. Everybody's saying, yeah, please sanction us. And I'm one of the biggest proponents of that. I keep saying this: sanction India so that we can actually wake up once and for all. Otherwise
Let,
we're in deep slumber.
let me put it this way: government should act
Yeah.
low key. I don't think government needs to say all this, but the civil society can do and say what you are saying. And they read the signals, and if they see the mood of the nation changing, it can have an impact. But the government should not get into this
Yeah.
discourse.
And I respect the government for being mature, for being quiet, and for not taking his baits, personal baits. As a matter of fact, I think that's very smart and very mature way of doing things.
Right?
Um, yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. As always, it's a pleasure and an honor talking to you
My pleasure. All the best.
and learning experience. To the audience, please leave your comments and don't forget to support the channel. Thank you so much. Namaskar. Jai Hind. Jai Bharat.
Yeah. So